Welcome to A Tribe Called Health. The Tribe convenes weekly for a roundtable discussion on all things health, fitness, and sustainable living. We're about to get started, but first a disclaimer. The information on this broadcast should not be considered medical or legal advice. If you need medical or legal advice, speak to a doctor or a lawyer. If you are a doctor or a lawyer and need health or fitness advice, get in the tribe. On today's show, we welcome the lovely and talented Camille Macris from RecipeRx.com and author of the new book, Paleogasm. Get your O-face on, folks. This is A Tribe Called Health. Joe Rignoli here from WellnessPunks.com, and with me, as always, is Eric Hulse and not John Randalls. John is away on vacation this week, so we are going to be holding it down with our very special guest. What's up, Eric?
What's going on?
You know.
How's everybody doing?
I think we have it together now. This is about the 18th time we're trying to record this, so.
Don't tell anybody that. They don't need to know all that.
That's all right. You know, we full transparency. We just, you know, we like to let people in behind the scenes. Maybe we'll throw some outtakes at the end of this and everything. So we'll try and get Camille falling off of a chair or a light falling on her head or something.
Falling on me again. Yeah.
Eric, really quick, just remind people where they can find you online.
EricHulse.com, Eric Hulse Wellness, YouTube, and Facebook.
Awesome. So introduce our guest.
Camille Macris is the author of Paleogasm, 150 grain, dairy, and sugar-free recipes that will leave you totally satisfied and begging for more. She runs Paleo Living, dedicated to recipes, trustworthy health information, and daily inspiration for every step of your paleo journey and transformation, and is the founder of RecipeRx, which creates recipes and meal plans perfectly customized to your health profile. Harnessing 10 years of expertise as a professional chef for the Southern California elite and a deep understanding of the healing properties of food, Camille is committed to transforming the lives of 100 million people in her lifetime by shifting healthcare from the medicine cabinet to the pantry and the doctor's office to the garden. We are so happy to have you, Camille. Let's get started.
I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Okay, I think this makes 19 times that we've tried to record this.
Yep. Let's do it.
All right. So, Camille, thanks so much for joining us again.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
So, I think the number one question that we all have, and by all I mean all two of us,
and the entire world that you're speaking for.
Exactly. Absolutely. Is how in the world did you come up with that awesome title for your book?
So I was about probably 3/4 the way through with testing the recipes, and I had a paleo dinner party. And my good friend Josh Trent, who you guys know of Wellness Force, was eating a bite of this pudding. And it was it's the bittersweet chocolate pudding with the chai coconut cream that's in the book. Mm-hmm. And he's sucking on a spoonful of this. It's really thick and rich. And his eyes are like rolling behind his head, and he says, "Oh my God, I think I'm having a paleogasm." And we all turn and look at him. We're like, "What did you say?" And he was like, that's what this is. This is a paleogasm. And I just sort of, I filed that away. And then a couple weeks later, I was, because I did all the design. I was doing the cover design, and the last thing there was to do was the space that had the title. And the word paleogasm comes back, and I say, no. I cannot name this book Paleogasm. Maybe a recipe, but that's as far as this good Christian girl can go. And well, sort of former. I don't know. I was in a Christian church for many years and still have lots of friends, and I want to not necessarily ruffle everybody's feathers, and I just didn't know if I could like, even I just didn't know if I could do it. Because I'm not, like, even though the name is that kind of a name, I'm really not that kind of a girl. I don't know what that kind of a girl really is.
Come on, Camille, you're talking to us. Let's get real here.
It just seemed a little taboo. And but as I was thinking about it, it's like the name was just so perfect, though, because it really did conjure up like the way that you feel when you eat my food, as Josh so perfectly demonstrated that night for us with his Paleogasm. And then at that moment, I'm even going to say that God intervened on Paleogasm's behalf.
Somehow I don't know about that. But maybe.
And my friend, Dr. Lauren Noel, who I think you guys know, she has Dr. Low Radio, she just happened to call me up on the phone. And I said, Lauren, I want to name my book Paleogasm, but I don't know if I can. I don't know if I have the nerve. And she said, Camille, you must. You must name the book Paleogasm. And then I just did. I typed the title in, and then that was
it.
the name.
So Dr. Lauren was the voice of God at that moment.
Yes. I'm sure she'll be happy to hear that.
Exactly.
God or the devil,
Either one.
Depending on who you ask.
Either way, it's an awesome book. And I told you, even before I met you, I was like, she's my new best friend. Just because of the title. And I'm sure whatever is in the book is just as amazing.
It's pretty delicious.
Yeah, I've had the privilege to get a look at it, and I actually made the plantain crepes this morning. I made them this morning, and they were, oh my god, Paleogasm. That's the only word for that book. It's Paleogasm, because they are that good.
That is one of the more difficult recipes in the book. So I mean, having to shuck the thick skin off the plantains, and you have to beat them up and get them all creamy, and then turn them into a batter. Did you actually?
I'm all about beating things up and getting them creamy, so that's not a problem. I don't even know what that means.
I think you know exactly what that
means. Joe, you're such a stud.
This is going downhill fast, folks.
That's part of the problem when you name a book. When you name a book Paleogasm, it just sets people up for that. I teach cooking classes in San Diego sometimes, and it's so funny. As soon as the name comes out of my mouth, it's like everybody's listening in the entire room is to sex, and you can't. You can't talk about soaking your nuts. You can't talk about creamy anything. You can't talk about anything without people going, ha, 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 ha. When normally it would have just slid by into the window. So that's the blessing and the curse of Paleogasm.
Right, absolutely. It's definitely an attention getter. But
okay, so you liked the crepes.
Oh my god, it was so good.
Plantains.
Seriously.
Plantains are, wait, did you make all the filling? Did you make every part of it, or just the crepe?
I just did the crepe, and all I had, I had some like fresh blueberries. I had some, jams, and I had some coconut cream that I whipped up for the inside. I actually had a little ice cream.
Nice.
In there.
No better time to have ice cream than first thing in the morning.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, honestly, I can't think of a time that isn't good to have ice cream, but just for the record, my ice cream comes directly from a farm.
Wonderful.
It's raw and grass-fed.
Nice.
It comes out of the udder.
Seriously,
ice cream.
3 days earlier, it's literally in a cow. So I'm
cool.
totally cool with it.
Nice visual.
Yeah, plantains. I want more people to cook with plantains. They're really great because, especially, I'm telling you guys, I tried probably 15 different crepe variations and wanted to beat my head against a wall. Because, crepes, they're really thin. And when you're not using flour, the gluten, gluten is like glue. So it helps, it helps to hold everything together. And when you're making a really thin pancake that you're trying to flip, it just everything was falling apart. The almond flours, the coconut, all of that was totally falling apart. So, so the plantains are great because they are pretty starchy. And I think that plantains have a good amount of nutrition in them as well. So
Sure.
I want to actually experiment with them more. I've done some biscuits. I made some really good plantain biscuits. I've made plantain chips. But I want to. Not many people have done much, even in the paleo world. Like I haven't seen really much by way of plantains.
It's funny. I grew up with my family is from Belize in Central America, and since I was a kid, we grew up with plantains being a staple in our family. And I think within the last 5 years or so, they've kind of become more and more popular, where people are actually cooking with them more and more, and you're seeing more recipes with them. So I think that's awesome.
Well, I see it. I see them like the Cuban stuff all coming back and using it in that way. But in terms of baking, I think there's a lot to be discovered using plantains in baking, especially because so many people have grain intolerances, and the paleo diet's becoming so popular. So
I have to say, I mean, they really did hold together really well, and it's unlike coconut flour where you need like 8,000 eggs for like a cup of coconut flour.
Right.
This, I mean, it's really because you've got this really thin, large crepe that's always going to rip when you try and flip it over, but this really held together nice. So
I remember the night I was so determined because I have loved crepes forever. And that's my whole thing. I think I told you guys, and I always like to say that I really am a foodie first and a health nut second, and I don't think that you should have to compromise. So that's why I was so excited about writing this book and coming up with like a recipe like plantain crepes, because it's so important to me to have my food really be delicious and not feel like, we've all been there. Anyone who's been on a special diet, when you first stop eating gluten or whatever, where you're like, shoot, what am I going to eat? Everything tastes like cardboard. This is disgusting. This sucks. And how am I going to ever be happy again? If you're somebody who loves food, that was how it was for me for a couple of years. And maybe just a couple months, but it felt like years.
Who's counting?
It felt like years, but just like, oh my God, I don't eat gluten anymore. I don't eat dairy anymore. I can't if I want to feel good. What the heck am I going to eat? And so it was, just even for myself, for my own sanity and happiness, because I love food so much, I had to figure out how to make it taste good. So coming up with something like a plantain crepe where it's like, it's so delicious that you're not thinking about that ugly G word. It just makes me feel so good. And that's why I had to call the book Paleogasm. I just had to.
Right, absolutely. So I want to back up a little bit, because you've got a really cool story. So I want to, you went to college for something completely different than food and health and nutrition and all that, and then went on to be a professional chef. So how do you take us through that journey? How do you go from college for something completely different to professional chef to writing a book and running a blog and all that?
Yeah.
Take us through that.
So I've always loved food. I just didn't think that it was acceptable for me to become a chef. I went to a great university, Brandeis. It's in Boston, and I was always on the academic track. I was a speech and debate geek in high school. I had followed my boyfriend at the time out to Boston. He went to MIT. And so it was always about the academics. And, I got almost a full scholarship. And there wasn't a culinary program at Brandeis, but there was an economics program. And I was 18. It's like, who knows what they want to major in when they're 18 years old? You just have to choose something. But I was always cooking. We'd come home after a night of drinking at 2 a.m. and I'd make the entire dorm floor. I'd create something in a little tiny microwave, or, like a little rickety kitchen setup, like in the dorm. And then by senior year, I was studying abroad in Sydney, and I was in an upper level economics. This was actually a graduate level economics course there. And that was the only way they were going to let it transfer. So this class was so freaking hard. It was so hard. And I would not pay attention at all. I would sit and write shopping lists and just think of what I was going to make for dinner that night for my house, because we lived with, Yeah, I lived with a whole bunch of other Americans, and we had this. Oh my gosh, you guys! I wish you could have been there to see it. We found this humongous ping pong table about 2 miles from my house, and this was in Coogee Beach. I don't know if you guys have ever been to Australia, but it's like
Nope.
party town outside of Sydney, and we roll this ping pong table down this hill for 2 miles, and this is a like professional size, like the official size.
You just found it on the street, just chilling on the side of the street?
Because it was broken.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was broken. Somebody else got rid of it because the wheels were broken. So we're wheeling this broken wheeled ping pong table down to our house, and I'm thinking this is going to be our new dining room table. My roommates are thinking this is going to be our new beer pong table, and so it became both. And every Monday night we would have. I was cooking dinner for like 30 people. And people would come, they would pitch in for the food, and everyone would come, and they would know that Monday nights Camille made dinner for everyone. And I got so much joy out of people just coming around and eating my food and all of the praise and adoration they gave me. And it just felt really good. I failed that class. I almost did not graduate in time. Somehow I did. And then after college, I moved to Santa Barbara, California, just because I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was lost. You know, my friends were all going to medical school. You guys live on the East Coast. You know how East Coasters are. It's like you go from this, and then you go to that, and then you do this, and then you do that. And it's like, okay, I'm going to be a lawyer. I'm going to be a doctor. And I was like, oh, I'm going to be a beach bum. I don't know. And I moved to Santa Barbara and started working. I had worked in restaurants like front of the house. And I just loved food. I was just so drawn to it. But again, it wasn't acceptable. Anyway, so long story short, I ended up working in a restaurant for a couple years. I ended up traveling around the world, eating in like all of these exotic places all over the world, come back. I tried to do an office job. I did an office job for probably 9 months. And again, wanted to just shoot myself in the head because all I wanted to do was be cooking. I hated sitting in front of a desk. And so finally one day I was totally fed up and I said, I'm going to do it. I'm going to become a chef. And I had never been paid, not one day in my life had I been paid to cook. I had just been cooking for friends and family. And I had my friend build me a website that declared me a professional chef specializing in special needs diets, because at that point I was already eating gluten and dairy free. And I connected with a holistic doctor in town. And probably within a month, I had already replaced my income from my normal job, you know, because it was an affluent area, and there were people that wanted that service, especially because I went into that niche saying that I was wanting to cook gluten-free and dairy-free, and I could do whatever you needed. That really worked, and so then the story actually starts to get really interesting, because I think, were you saying earlier, Joe, with you and your transition, you want to move from working not so much one-on-one, but being able to like really reach a lot of people?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was the same realization that I was having, that working one-on-one with people was great because I was learning. I really taught myself everything I knew in the kitchen working for people. I didn't know very much, but it wasn't going to be enough for me because I've always had this I don't know if you know anything about astrology, but I'm an Aquarius, so that means like I want to heal the entire world. And so it's not just like a one-on-one relationship, it's how do I heal the world?
Right.
And so I would listen, as I was cooking, I would listen to audiobooks and podcasts and everything about entrepreneurship and building a business, like E-Myth and, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And I was just submerging myself with all of this, different business stuff. And I knew that there was something there. I took a course through, it was like a women's entrepreneurship course. And I was just looking, I was searching for my big idea, the idea that was going to heal the world. And And then I had a really close friend who found out that he had Graves' disease. I don't know if it's a hyperthyroid condition. And I was really worried about his health. And so I started looking up in all of my health books, because at this point I was now self-taught in nutrition as well. You know, I had Prescription for Nutritional Healing and Healing with Whole Food and all of those books around this whole premise of healing with food. I was really fascinated by that. And so I said, okay, so what do I cook for him? So what does a person eat that has Graves' disease? And so I'd have to go and look up in one encyclopedia, and I'd reference everything. And this was probably, I think this was like probably 2005. So the internet was around. We didn't have like everything that we have now. But I got to thinking, you know, I wish that I could just plug all of his stuff into a website, say, okay, he has Graves' disease, these are the foods he should eat, and pop out some recipes. It seemed, for me, just like the most logical thing, like the most practical thing that you could ever have. And I looked and looked and looked, and well, actually looked and looked and looked for about 3 hours. It wasn't actually that long. But because I was also looking for my big idea, right? And it was like, oh, I wonder if that's it. So then I start calling So I start calling some like holistic doctors, and I call some acupuncturists. I just start calling people and say, hey, is there a website that does this and this and that and that? And they were like, no, but if you think of one, if you find one, you let me know. And then the light bulb goes off, and I was like, that's it. That's it. And so that's really, you know, then there was, you know, the rest is history. You know, as you guys know, if you, for all of you entrepreneurs out there, things got really complicated and expensive and tumultuous pretty quickly. And so I don't know, Joe, have you listened? Did you listen to that whole podcast? Because you knew some of this stuff.
Yeah, I think so. I heard the ping pong table story, so I'm glad you told that, because that's a good one.
Yeah, so I actually have. I'll tell people. I also do have I have my own podcast called Food, Love, and Transformation. We can put the links. But if you guys want really the whole story, I tell my whole 2-hour story as my first podcast. And people
it's a 2-part series, right?
It's a 2-part series. So, people have been enjoying it. I think it's pretty fascinating. I don't want to have our entire podcast spent telling that story, but
yeah, definitely check that out. It's pretty interesting.
And are we gonna be on that podcast?
Yeah, we are gonna bum rush your podcast. We're gonna just take over.
I can't wait.
So we'll schedule that.
We need to get the Third Musketeer on.
Oh, for sure. Oh, yeah, no, definitely. Won't do it without him.
Yep.
Yeah. So So I mean, there was just a whole journey for me. I actually have only been eating paleo since last fall, when I found out that I just wasn't feeling that good, and I was like, you know, I really should have this handled, right? I am Recipe RX. This is my shtick. Why do I still not feel good? But but being honest with myself, I wasn't treating myself that well. I was working way too much. You know, running a startup is, I wasn't exercising. I wasn't in the sun. I was eating okay. I was eating gluten and dairy free, but so I went to my naturopathic doctor, and she ran some tests, and she said that she actually suspected I might have Hashimoto's. That turned out that I didn't, thankfully, but that I had adrenal fatigue, and that I had some nodules on my thyroid. And I freaked out, because obviously I'm obsessed with health, and I'm so committed. You know, I know that you can really only be as big in the world for people as you have actually, uncovered and solidified in yourself, and that there was a really a next level for me in my own health transformation. And so as God so beautifully does, brought the right people at the right time into my life. That very day, my friend Corey Lynn, I told her, I said, I just went to the doctor, and I might have Hashimoto's, and I have adrenal fatigue, and I'm so freaked out. And she hands me Rob Wolf's book, Paleo Solution, and that other book, it's a terrible name, like when you're Karzakian or something, like what?
Oh, Dr. Karazian.
Karazian.
Why do I still have? Yeah. Why do I still have thyroid symptoms when my tests are normal?
Most amazing book ever.
I have it right here.
Yeah, amazing book. Worst name ever.
Yeah.
I plowed through those puppies. I read those entire books in like 3 days, and it just made so much sense. And I went, and I know this is not how most people do it, but I went hardcore paleo day one. I pulled out my Sally Fallon Nourishing Tradition book. I started making my bone broth. I started fermenting things, and I don't even think I ate any starch or sugar at all probably for 2 months. I mean, I was really, really, really clean. And I'm telling you guys, I mean, I don't need to tell you, but I felt, and this is already somebody, I mean, even though I hadn't been feeling good, my health was already better than most people's, right? Because I already was doing stuff. But I felt such a noticeable, rapid shift within 3 or 4 days of starting that I knew, that there was something there, and that this was something to pay attention to. And then I just got engulfed into the world of paleo, just like so many of us do, and it all made sense. And so it was within probably a couple weeks of starting the paleo diet that I actually started writing the cookbook, which was cool for me because it kept me, it's so much easier for me to keep going for myself when I know that it's not just for me, when it's for other people. And because I am a really good cook, I know how to make food taste good. And this was like a challenge for me then. It's, wow, I'm only able to use just these ingredients. All right, game on. I'm up for this challenge. And so that's what I did. I just spent like 3 solid months just testing recipes, and I don't mean to toot my own horn, but I will, because I was already a professional. I was already a chef. I was already a professional chef. Like, everything was delicious. I mean, it just was. And I thought, I really need to be sharing this with people. And so people have been asking me for a cookbook for a long time, and so I stopped the other projects I was working on. I found a couple people who wanted to pay me to deliver the food. So basically I would buy the food. I would test the recipes. I'd write everything down. I'd take the pictures. I'd taught myself food photography, and then I'd deliver it to them, and they would pay me. So I had like this little mini paleo food delivery that allowed me. Awesome. Yeah. And it allowed me to just like do the cookbook instead of like, most people have to, like do their little pet project on the side. I did the cookbook. That has really been my journey. And sometimes I've wondered if, everyone can have regrets. I couldn't be doing anything but what I'm doing. But I mean, the road for me as an entrepreneur has not been easy. I really did, especially I moved to San Diego about a year and a half ago, and quit. I had a great job as a private chef in Santa Barbara. I lived in this beautiful home. I had the life in Santa Barbara that everybody would want. And I gave it all up because I was too comfortable, and I knew that I really needed to say I am fully 100% committing to Recipe RX, and I've had to do a lot of things that I wouldn't have done had I have had that job to fall back on, and it's really forced me out and pushed me past my comfort zone. But man, it's like, this is life we're talking about. This is our journey, and it's all about our journey. And I wouldn't be the person I wouldn't be the person I am if I wouldn't have, just like you said, just jump off the cliff, because it's really grown me a lot. So I'm really thankful. And I'm at the tipping point. Things are just about to get just so. I mean, they're already fantastic, but so that I can begin to reach the people. I want to reach a lot of people through this business. 100
million people. You set that goal on purpose. You didn't just pull that out of nowhere. You purposefully.
I did. I purposefully made that goal, and it was like, I have no idea I'm going to do this. Can I actually tell you a little bit about how that came?
Yeah. Totally.
Okay. Oh, this is. I forgot that you're actually interviewing me. I just sort of was thinking.
No, it's all good. That's what our show is all about. It's just a hangout.
We're just sitting here talking. Like,
That's what it's supposed to be.
Drinking.
That's it.
I'm just eating soup and I'm hanging out with my 2 new friends. And they're actually interviewing me right now. They want to hear this story. So I was talking with my business coach I think in December, and I'm a worker. I am a visionary, but I also I just, as soon as I see what there is to be done, I just go and start doing it. It's probably not the best way to be an entrepreneur.
I'm the same way. I'm the same way, and I don't mean to interrupt, but if I look at the whole picture, like if I have an idea and I think of the whole grand picture and how long it's going to take to accomplish something, I probably would never start. Like with the couple of books that I've written, if I really sat down and thought about it.
Oh yeah, you never do it.
I never would have done it. But you just have to start.
This is too much work.
Exactly. You just have to start. Go ahead.
Absolutely, but she had me do an exercise that I'm so thankful for, and for all of you listeners, for you guys, I highly recommend you doing this exercise. So she said, imagine it's 20 years in the future, and you are at an awards banquet, and you are being honored. This is your awards banquet. So the first question is, what are you being honored for? The second question is, who's sitting at your table? Your dignified, your round table of people. And then, go up and you accept your speech. Who's giving you the speech? What do they say? And she took me through this whole thing. And what I saw, this was one of those lines in the sand where, you can never go back from this experience. And what I saw was that so who was sitting at my table? Who was sitting at my table was Jamie Oliver. You guys know the Food Revolution guy?
He would be at my table also.
Freaking love that guy. He had this show. Did you guys see did you used to watch his show?
Religiously.
Okay.
Food Revolution.
I am still convinced that I will work with him someday.
Let's do that. Can we just
That's it.
Let's
Done.
work on together. We'll each take turns calling him. Okay, so that you remember, I'm so happy you guys know this, because I talk about this all the time. So this episode, you probably saw it. It was a dad and the 2 boys, and they actually brought in, you remember. I'm so happy nobody ever has seen this.
They brought him into the house, and
with all the food.
All the crappy food all over the place, right? Yes. Yep.
Yes.
I remember that crystal clear.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, so there were, for people who didn't see, there were pizza boxes everywhere. There's ding-dongs and ho-hos and chicken nuggets. The producers brought 2 meals a day for an entire year into the house, and they just laid it all over the house. And the dad and these 2 boys, the boys were 10 and 14, you got to see the look of utter horror and disgust over what they had been consuming. And it was just amazing. People, I believe that largely people have to hit a sort of rock bottom before they're willing to make drastic change in their life.
I've always believed that. You don't change until you can't go any further down. Yeah. And it's very similar to what you were saying before, Joe. If you have a plan B, you're going to drop back on that plan B. But if you hit that rock bottom and there's nowhere else to go, that's when you're like, all right, I have to make some changes.
And it was great, because just in that moment, that's what they did. They forced them to rock bottom, or they actually had to see the impact of the decisions they'd been making before they actually got really sick. Thankfully, mostly, people have to get sick. But anyway, so then, from there, Jamie says, so here's the mindset. The dad says, we don't have the skills. I don't have time. I'm a single dad, and, and cooking at home is expensive. Those are the words, right? That's the excuse. That's what everybody says about cooking at home and cooking healthy. I don't have the time. I don't have the money. I don't know how. And so Jamie says, okay, great. You go out and you do your fast food run, and in the same amount of time, with less money, your boys, I'm not even going to cook. I'm going to stand here, and your boys who've never cooked before are actually going to make the meal. And so let's do it. And so, they show it all going down. the boys made this entire meal. It was like chicken and tomato sauce and a slaw salad, and they just made this awesome meal. Jamie didn't do anything, and they're finished 15 minutes before the dad gets home, and they go in and they sit around the dinner table, and these boys, they are just beaming with pride, and the dad is in shock. He couldn't believe that his boys had made this meal. They pull out the receipt. Sure enough, Jamie's food was $21 and this food was $35. Whatever, I don't know. I'm bawling, you guys. This for me was like the most beautiful moment in television history, and I knew then that was the kind of contribution I wanted to make, was shifting that kind of paradigm, that mindset shift, because it's true. There's a whole lot of stuff going on that wants to pull us away, right? There's fast food on every corner. There's, we don't even need to get into food policy and all of that. That's a whole nother show. There's the media. There's, our toxic taste buds. There's everything that wants to pull us off of the track of preparing healthy meals at home. And it doesn't need to be that way, as Jamie showed in that one episode. And so I knew that was the kind of contribution I wanted to make. So anyway, so now going back to my vision, Jamie, of course, was sitting at my table. And so was Michael Pollan. You guys know Michael Pollan, yeah? Omnivore's Dilemma. Michelle Obama, who has been, very instrumental in the food movement. And so they were like the three people that everyone would know. And then I also knew in my heart that, so there were other people there who I hadn't yet met, who would be in this movement with me and who would take my baton further than I would, in the way that Jamie inspired me, and Alice Waters inspired me, that there were people that I would inspire that would take this even further, and we were all there together. Wow. And then Ryan Seacrest, he was the one giving me you guys, this is how it was.
Of course, why wouldn't he be there?
It has to be Ryan
everywhere else.
And there's like, do you like the Situation Room on CNN with like all of the screens and stuff? Yeah. So I actually see these two screens, these like with all of these lights, and it shows like as my tribes, tribe, you guys are tribe, as my tribe, my community, as our influence increased in the world, heart disease and diabetes and obesity and all of the other nasty crap like was going down, and it was on this big like LCD projector screen, like actually visually demonstrating that was what was possible. That as this message that Jamie, illustrated becomes more real, then these diseases that are killing 90% of people, taking people out 10, 20, 30 years earlier than they need to be, like as people really begin to get that connection, those diseases can be a thing of the past, and we can bypass the sick care system entirely. We don't even need to, I don't bother with any of those discussions. I just don't. It's just, let's just focus on educating people and feeding them. Teach people how to cook healthy food and have it be fun and delicious. And that's it.
Brilliant. It's so funny because go ahead, Eric. Yeah.
Can I be invited to your acceptance?
Yeah.
We're at the table, Eric. I don't know. We're at the table.
You're gonna have to earn your spot at the table, guys.
Okay. All right. We'll work on that.
I can see that. I can see it could be a distinct possibility, but yeah.
Right on.
Let's talk a little bit about Recipe RX for a second, because it's a really interesting concept. So people go to the website, they have some sort of a condition like like an autoimmune disease or diabetes. They put in their sort of parameters, and the website spits out recipes for them. Is that basically how it works?
Yeah, that's exactly how it works.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
So where do the recipes come from? Are they all your recipes?
Some of them let's see. So there's about 450 recipes in the system right now. Actually, my Paleogasm recipes are not in there yet.
At this point in the podcast, Camille blurted out something inappropriate. Extremely funny, but inappropriate. She then made me promise to cut it out. Instead, please enjoy this musical interlude. We should probably cut that part out.
I know, I was really bad. Please take that out. Why do I say those things?
And here I am. Wait.
We now return you to A Tribe Called Health.
So a lot of the recipes, some of the recipes are mine, and there were some Creative Commons recipes that I also put in there that I edited. And then I'm going to be getting my stop laughing.
You know what's really awful about that is that I'm going to edit that part out, and then I'm going to be laughing, and people are going to be like, "What the hell is he laughing at?"
You'd be like, in this clip here, Camille said something very inappropriate.
Moving on.
That we get to enjoy and you do not. Anyway, so what? Okay, so
Recipe RX.
So yeah, so some of the recipes are mine. Some of them are open sourced. What I really want to do with it though is do probably something, you know. I want it to. Recipe RX really is a platform. I never meant to be the person who, you know, provided all of the recipes. There are so many amazing, talented chefs. So as things get going more, I want it to be, you know, user generated, but well curated, so that it is only, you know, good recipes. So the website is. I mean, nobody has a software like this. It is, and it's actually pretty amazing to me because I thought of it so long ago. You know, it's 2013. I think it was 2005 or maybe 2006 that I had the idea.
Wow.
So I thought for sure somebody would have stolen it by now. I have not really stolen, but, you know, done something also. But it's funny because then I have talked to people and I tell them about what I do, and they're like, "Oh my God, I totally thought about doing something like that." And then I realized how much work it is, and then I stopped. So
yeah, that's how it goes.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
it's very expensive, and it was you know, $100,000 of my money, and you know, 8 years of time, and many gray hairs. But yeah, it's going to. Sorry, I'm closing out my Facebook. It was making noise at me. It's going to make a huge difference in people's lives. I think though, and I can imagine that you guys would understand this, that people don't even know, like Recipe RX I sort of feel like is still a little bit ahead of its time, because now I'm having to rewind and tell and educate people, just like I'm sure that you guys do, and say, hey, did you know that if you're experiencing any number of 1,000 different symptoms, it probably 95% chance has to do with what you're eating. And if you were actually eating food that worked for your body, those symptoms would naturally go away.
Right.
So
it's really great because I could picture actually sending clients to the website and saying, look, you know, this is your issue. I give them a meal plan, but then if they need more ideas, go to a website. I mean, it's such an amazing resource. Yeah.
So, but it seems to be taking. We really need to have that middleman. You know, a person needs to have been educated, you know, through somebody such as yourself, or, you know, I do have a couple quizzes on the website, but at this point, people are some groups of people are now beginning to understand that their health is correlate to the food that they eat. And I know that people get it. People get it on like a macro scale. They get that if they eat unhealthy, they're going to be fat and they might die early. So they understand that. But I don't think a lot of people get that,
specific disease or specific type of autoimmune problem.
Any specific anything. Like
any kind of symptom, Any
symptom. Like I was sitting with my friend, and this is now what I do. This is what I look for. But we had just had lunch together, and he had a taco salad that had, cheese and sour cream, and he had been a certain way before he ate. And then as soon as he finished eating, his nose started to run. And he's like, and I said, Joey, I think that you might be allergic to dairy. And he was like, what are you talking about? And I said, well, you were a certain way before you ate, and now you ate, and your nose won't stop running. And I think he might even have sneezed a couple times. And he was like, oh, I don't know what you're talking about. But then he texted me later on that night and was like, oh, I just ate tacos and I feel the same way again. And I just love it because then it's like,
the light bulb goes off. It's like, okay, I get it. Yep.
And then they begin. So I don't know exactly how to cause that movement where people have that first realization, and where people begin to, it's really about people beginning to learn to read their bodies and just, to pay attention to how what they're eating is affecting them.
It's going to take a shift, like a mindset shift within the world in order for that to happen, because like you were mentioning before, there's all the media and all the everything that's out there that's actually against what you're trying to do.
Yes.
That food is may not be the issue. It's something else, or your nutrition it may, like you said before, it could make you overweight, but it's not causing your eye to twitch like that.
Right.
You know what I mean?
They don't want, and they don't want, like, there's really no vested interest in anybody in the media giving us that information. I mean, certainly the pharmaceutical companies don't want us to know that, because they want, for your sniffly nose, they would rather give you, 7 different varieties of whatever, and there's not really a whole lot of money to be made in organic broccoli.
But people just don't want to hear that they can't have cheese anymore.
Yeah.
A lot of people would just rather take a pill.
Yep.
So what do we do?
We just keep doing what we're doing.
And we've mentioned this before in podcasts. It's all just about you living your life and leading by example, and people watching your health, improve, and then your clients' health improve, and then I went to Camille's website and I followed a few things and I feel awesome.
Yeah.
I think it's more about to keep doing what you're doing, but sit back and let people come to you and let them believe. Because, like we said before, people are not going to believe you until they hit their rock bottom. Right. Then they're going to remember what you said and say, you know what? She was talking about this before. Let me go check this out.
Yeah. No, I know that you're right, totally. And that's been, even since I've been eating paleo for, how long have I been eating paleo? I don't know, 7 months now. That really has been the experience for me. And I knew that there was something off because before I was eating paleo, I was doing a lot of the right things, but I was still eating grains. And I was still doing things I didn't know I shouldn't be doing. I wasn't eating gluten, but since I've been like really pretty strict with paleo, I started juicing. Again, I used to be really into juicing back in the day. I had this huge. Do you guys know the Norwalk juicer?
No,
have you ever heard of that?
I have a Jack LaLanne juicer.
You have a Jack LaLanne. Well, the Norwalk. Have you heard of the Gerson Institute?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the Gerson Institute uses exclusively. So for listeners, it's like the premier heal cancer through food and diet. So they have this monster juicer called the Norwalk, and this thing is like $3,500 new. You grind the food in the one tube, and it's like little fairies break it up for you, and they don't lose any of the nutrition, and it goes into a little bag. And then the bag, you fold over the bag, and it goes into this hydraulic press, and it exerts 1 ton of pressure. and then liquid gold comes out. I mean, it's gorgeous juice.
But how do the fairies not get crushed under the 1 ton of pressure? That's what I want to know.
It's the fairies they lift the bag over and they put it underneath, and then they just glide away.
I would just be worried. I'd just be worried that so a fairy would get their leg caught in the press or something. And
I feel like this story should not be told to little girls. 5 and under, it's not a good idea.
But I had one of those juicers, you guys, back in my early days when I first had the idea for Recipe RX. I saw the Gerson Miracle movie and was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to buy this juicer, and then people with cancer are going to find me. Like, if you build it, they will come. And I used to juice with that juicer. There would be like juice flying all over the walls, and it was messy. It took an hour to clean. It was like a whole mess. But anyway, I digress.
Is there a fairy labor union that you had to deal with? No. Sorry. All right.
Fairies work for juice.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, they're happy to work for juice.
Awesome.
But anyway, so I had stopped juicing, and I just started juicing again. And this is another thing I really want to bring into the paleo community. I just finished writing an article for Paleo Magazine about some of the pitfalls of the paleo diet, and I think one of the major ones is too much meat and not enough vegetables. And, not enough of all of the really essential micronutrients and enzymes that you get from eating fresh produce. And so I am about to make a point here, is that the combination for me of starting to juice every day with eating paleo has been so phenomenal for my health. I mean, I have lost, I wouldn't consider myself overweight, but I'd already started to lose weight doing paleo. I started juicing. I'm back down to the weight that I was when I was like 23. I don't drink any coffee. I was teasing you guys about coffee. I used to be addicted to coffee. I don't
drink coffee.
Okay, sorry, Joe.
Me either.
But
I'm okay.
No, but really, I really do want this to be a conversation in the paleo community. Because I also was a raw vegan for 6 weeks until I realized.
So was I.
6 weeks.
6 weeks?
I was one for 3 months.
Oh my gosh! And then you were like dreaming about bacon every night?
No.
I always say if I could juice bacon, then I would be a raw vegan. I don't know, that doesn't make sense, but that's where I'm at.
Why did you stop doing it, Eric?
Because you know what, I didn't like when people would put down certain diets without them trying it themselves. So I was like, look, if I want to do something and if I want to talk about it and I want to have a debate about it, I need to experience it. I can't just say, no, that's crap because that's what everybody else is saying. I needed to experience for myself. And in those 3 months, I learned a ton about food that I have never known before. I learned about things like sprouting. I learned about enzymes. I learned about alkaline versus acidic. And I know you can learn these things somewhere else, but it's from being a raw vegan that I learned this stuff, and the juicing and all this other things. It was a world that I would have never gone to. Yeah. And I still take some of the information and I mold it into what I'm doing now as a diet or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, that's awesome that you say that, because that's what, again, like there's a lot of awesome paleo chefs out there, but I like to think that I am in some ways a little bit set apart because of that, because I bring in so many of my raw food principles that I learned. It didn't make me feel very good to eat that way. But I let so much about, why do you all of the nuts, anything that I prepare like that in Paleogasm, I soak them all. It's really important to soak them. You turn the nut from being a starch to actually converting it to having the nutrients readily available. You get rid of that tough external shell, all those phyto or the enzyme inhibitors. It's really important. And then, and getting a lot more raw food into your diet. So, so I want to bring that I hope that comes through in Paleogasm, and I want that to continue to come through, that it's really important to eat a lot of plant food and eat a lot of raw plant food, to get those enzymes. And anyway, and juicing for me has just been, it's something that I don't know if a lot of paleo people are really doing or think about, but it took my paleo, like feeling pretty good eating paleo, it took it from here, like, through the moon.
Yeah, I have to agree with that, because when I was, like I said before, I was a raw vegan for 3 months, and then I switched to paleo hardcore.
Right after that?
Right after that,
yeah,
right?
The rebellion.
it kind of was like that. It was weird, and it was like everything changed in that one instant where I went from being a raw vegan, because my body was like, ooh, and soaked up everything that it was missing in those 3 months.
Yeah.
But I did, after a while, I went back to some of my raw food principles, and it was at that moment that I feel like how you're probably feeling right now. There was a really great period of time where I felt like I was a super person.
Yeah, that's how
it was really awesome.
Yeah, I think it's a really good combination, and I think we probably need to stop arguing about some of these things and focus on where we have commonalities.
Totally.
So I think that's really where the truth lies, somewhere in the middle there. But
yeah,
sorry, Eric, I cut you off.
No, it's okay. I was pretty much finished, but I totally agree with you, Joe, about there does need to be we need to be friends. You know what I mean? And there needs to be like that, okay, you do your thing, I do, and I'm going to do my thing, but we can share ideas because there's a common ground that I think is extremely healthy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And that really, that there isn't just one thing for everybody. And I think, and that's what's so hard. This is actually a book that I want to write is, like, how did this whole mess even happen where we have all of these really well-meaning health people? Like, we have this whole grassroots movement that is, going against the grain of of just conventional medicine and saying, hey, there's got to be a better way. So really, like, the two communities, these two like loud communities we have largely is a vegan community and a paleo community that oftentimes seems to be at odds with one another when we're both trying to
accomplish the same thing. Accomplish
the same thing. And I don't. It's just so hard because we can only be passionate really about the things that we've experienced, and far be it for me to tell a raw vegan who is happy and healthy that they shouldn't be eating that way. I mean, it's totally hypocritical, and I don't desire to do so. And I think. But I really, really do stand behind that if people are going to eat beans and grains, that you really need to sprout them or soak them or ferment them. That if you don't do that, your body is not going to be able to assimilate the nutrients. My book, I don't know if you noticed this, but my book does, Paleogasm does bring in a lot of, I have kale chips and I soak lots of things.
I made kale chips today too.
You did? Wow. Yeah. Good for you.
Yeah.
Did you make them from my book, or did you make a different recipe?
I made them from your book. No, I'm sorry. I didn't actually. I'm lying. I just threw them in the oven with some coconut oil and salt.
Nice.
Is that from your book?
Nope.
Damn.
I can't remember. Actually, I have a really good kale chip recipe that has not made it into the book yet. Shoot, I don't think that I actually recorded it the first time. I'll record it for you guys. It's delicious. Okay. It has artichoke hearts and cashews. I make this whole cream. It was like an artichoke and jalapeno pistachio cream.
Wow.
And made it like it was really flavorful, and then you rub it all over on the outside. And that's more like a raw food preparation. They do they do cashew and stuff like that in raw kale chips. And I baked them, and they were so delicious.
That sounds amazing.
They were delicious.
So I'm glad you brought up the book. Let's talk a little bit more about the book and then wrap up, because I don't know about I'm sure Eric agrees. We can literally talk all night
forever.
long with you.
Yeah, and
so
we'll have about the Kickstarter also.
Yeah. So let's talk. So really quick, the book again is Paleogasm.
Yeah.
Is there a specific website for that people can go and find out?
You can just go to my main website, RecipeRx, RecipeRx.com.
Okay.
And there's the second tab is the cookbook, and there's a really fun video that's me and a British accent defining.
Was that inspired at all? Is that like inspired by Monty Python or anything like that?
It was actually my camera guy. You don't see this in the video. I wish we had an outtake, but we had this. I was sitting in a miniature, like a 4-year-old child's leather chair, and the chair was actually propped. It was on my kitchen island, and it was meant to be. We saw that chair. And this is my friend Tom, the Label Creative. They're an amazing camera crew. And he said, Masterpiece Theater.
Yes.
And we bring up all of these old, I love reading like Emerson and Thoreau. I have a book on Einstein. I just had these like very dignified books. And so we bring up these books and I sit and we're just, in our British accents, we're musing on these books and we're smoking fake pipes. And he says, okay, we're going to define Paleogasm. And he was a theater major. And so he's like, what's a Paleogasm? I was like, I don't know. And so we just start writing stuff down. And he said, everything has to be the letter P. And he made me define Paleogasm only using the letter P. And then he said, now you have to do it in one shot, where you have to look, so you have to memorize and look straight in the camera. So that took
take a sip from the drink all in one shot.
Yeah, and then the green juice, because I had to pay homage to the green juice. The green juice comes in, and I take a sip, and then the mysterious hand goes away. Oh, we had so much fun making it.
Awesome.
I wish I could have a camera crew every day. It would be so delicious and helpful. So basically the deal with Paleogasm is you can buy Paleogasm on Amazon right now in a printed book. And it's like print on demand. And I'm charging $40 for it, which is way more than I want to charge. But it's because when they print one copy, it costs me like $30 or $32 because they're just printing one at a time. Cause it's a full color book.
Oh,
so,
wow.
So that doesn't really work, and I don't want to have to charge that much for it. And I have talked to some publishers loosely, but even if I do get it published, it wouldn't be on shelves for at least 6 months, if not a year. So in the meantime, I'm launching this Kickstarter so that I can buy a quantity of books, and when I buy a quantity of books, I can cut the price in half, which means that I can sell the book. I can actually make a little bit of money on this book and get it out. Really, the most important thing is I want to be able to get it out to more people, and a $40 book doesn't really work for most people. And so I also, so that's the whole Kickstarter project, is to be able to buy a whole shipment of books, and to be able, I've done the design myself, but I want it to go through a more professional design process. The Kindle book needs to be fixed. And, and more than anything though, this is helping me to really push out in the awareness and the movement behind the book, but really behind the principles behind the book and everything that we've talked about on the show tonight. That giving people the awareness of, like, you can heal your body with the right food.
Right.
And these are really delicious recipes that are not very hard to make, and they leave you feeling really good. They're something, for most people, they're going to make you feel awesome. They're delicious, and I just believe it's the way people should eat. And so so I am, and also I have some, I don't know if everybody listening is familiar with a Kickstarter, but basically a Kickstarter it's like crowdsource funding, and you offer these really cool incentives. So I have all of these awesome incentives that I don't even really do anymore. I have, for people in Southern California, I'm gonna do some dinner parties. I have Google Hangout cooking classes. If you're anywhere, I'll actually teach people, a private group of people, a cooking class in their home through a Google Hangout. I have these Paleogasm care packages, which is like samplings of a whole bunch of different things from the book. I'm going to get like a whole bunch of friends together. We're just going to whip up a bunch of stuff and ship out care packages to people. I'm going to do a Paleogasm launch party here at my house in San Diego. I have this. It's just awesome. All of the things, and these are things that I'm not really doing anymore. I'm not working as a private chef. I don't make prepared foods that I ship in the mail to people. So, there's autographed books. There's Recipe RX subscriptions discounted. There's just a whole bunch of really fun stuff on this Kickstarter, and and this is a great opportunity for me in this next 3 weeks to just do a PR blitz.
Yeah, awesome.
So that's what it's all about.
Cool. So everyone check that out, and I'm looking forward to getting my Paleogasm chocolate pudding in the mail any day now. Just throw it in an envelope and ship it out. Not sure what shipping would be on that, but
yeah, the 12 pounds of dry ice.
Yeah, exactly. So, and then your Facebook page is Paleo Living, right?
Yeah. So I have the Recipe RX page, but for the paleo people, I just launched. So it's called Paleo Living, but the actual handle is Paleogasm. So facebook.com/Paleogasm.
Okay.
And I am posting recipes for the next 3 weeks. I'm posting a new recipe every day. So, so people should definitely check that out. I have my own podcast, which you guys will be on in the coming weeks, Food, Love, and Transformation. I was just telling Eric when you left for a second a little bit about that. It's about all things to do with just our journey, and eating healthy and learning to feed yourself is one of those things. But it's like I said, I had my friend who's an astrologer on a couple weeks ago, and we talked about like looking at your astrology chart to be able to find your own unique health. I've had a functional medicine doctor on. I had George Bryant on, the civilized caveman. Yeah, and I'm just continuing to have people on just to talk about their own transformation and the journeys that they're on towards finding their passion and their purpose and transforming their own lives. So, so those are the things that I'm doing.
Sounds good, and we'll definitely continue this conversation probably on your podcast, and then we'll have you back on our podcast, and then we'll invade yours again, and we'll go back and forth. And
and then we're going to have to bombard Jamie Oliver. We're going to have to set up like a really stealth plan around that.
Definitely.
Oh, the last thing I want to tell everybody, I do have this really great. It's called the Paleogasm Starter's Guide: 7 Ways to Eat Healthy Every Day Without Feeling Deprived, and that's a free little e-book kind of, just like a great little thing that I give people when they sign up for my mailing list. And I talk more about like all of the different flavors, how to balance the 6 different taste buds, how to balance the different flavors. I talk about plantains and other things that you should have in your pantry that you don't normally have. And I talk about how to like upgrade every meal of the day with all these different tips. So it's a really awesome little resource that that I'll be giving people for free if they want to be on my mailing list. And I don't spam. I just send out emails like once or twice a week, and they're just like helpful little tidbits. So that I think that's what I have to say.
So Camille, thank you so much for hanging out with us. We are totally looking forward to doing this again.
Yes.
Once again, reciperx.com and facebook.com/reciperx. Is that right?
Yep, and /Paleogasm.
Awesome.
And everyone,
and then you've got information about the Kickstarter on your website, right?
Yep, front and center. And it's only going until May 17th. So hop on over and see if there's anything that looks interesting to you before then.
Okay, awesome. Sounds good.
Thank you, everybody, in advance for your support. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you. Eric, erichulst.com.
That's right.
And I'm at wellnesspunks.com. And that's a wrap, folks. We will talk to you soon.